Hi, everyone. I'm Jess Hathaway, the editor-in-chief of National Fisherman. And today I have with me Rob Gillam of McKinley Capital Group. And Rob, today we're going to be talking about Peter Pan Seafoods. Good morning.
Good morning. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for being here. So first, I'd like you to just introduce yourself and talk about your role at McKinley and give a big picture overview of McKinley Capital.
Sure. Well, as you said, I'm Rob Gillam. I'm the chairman and CEO of McKinley Capital. We are the largest privately owned financial services company in the state of Alaska. We have an office in Anchorage and Juneau here in the state, as well as Chicago, New York, and Abu Dhabi in the Middle East. As an investment firm, we specialize in public equity investment globally and in private investment within the state of Alaska. And that obviously is the background category for this particular investment in Peter Pan.
That sounds great. So I understand that McKinley acquired McDowell Group, the research group, which is really well known for its research of Alaska fisheries. And that was in early 2020. And that was before the pandemic, correct?
It was, yeah.
So how does the research group fit into your investments in the seafood sector?
Well, I think you said it pretty well, frankly, and that is that they are one of the oldest and certainly the most well-known of researchers in the state. Economic and policy research, seafood is one of their core competencies, so we were excited to partner with them. They're a great group of people, and as all investments are based around people, this was a good one. So we're excited to have them, and certainly their seafood expertise was critical in our thinking about putting together this deal with Peter Pan.
Right. It's nice to have that advice on hand. And Peter Pan went up for sale also early last year. At what point did you start looking at it seriously as an investment opportunity?
Oh, kind of early in the year, frankly. I mean, I think my personal and familial history and love of Bristol Bay and all that happens in the Bay. So, certainly we've long been looking for opportunities to do something special, and we found a great opportunity and a great group of people and an awesome set of partners, and sort of all came together. It's a little bit of a convoluted process when you're working with a foreign conglomerate. Took a little bit of time and a little bit of patience on everybody's side, but we got to the end zone, as they say, on December 31st. So we're pretty excited about the opportunity.
Yeah. So speaking of Bristol Bay, can you talk a little bit about your relationship with Bristol Bay? I know you're in Anchorage right now, so you're not too far.
Yeah, I grew up in and around Bristol Bay. We have a family home in the Lake Clark area, which is a little bit east of the Bay. I spent my youth and the better part of my weekends and, not work time out in the Bay, in the communities there, fishing there, flying, floating, everything that's good about the Bay. My family, particularly my late father, was very involved in the Bristol Bay initiative surrounding the Pebble Mine, the challenges obviously therein, and supporting the seafood and fisheries of Bristol Bay. So it's a near and dear place to my heart for sure.
That's great, thank you. So I see just a couple of minutes ago, so we're recording this on Wednesday, January, is it the 5th or the 6th? January 6th. And so I see today that Peter Pan has, or rumors that Peter Pan has hired John Hickman away from Silver Bay Seafoods to be its chief operating officer. Can you confirm that?
I can tell you that we will always hire and retain the best. And
Okay.
so you're going to see a lot of announcements from us in the coming couple of months as we execute on what we think is just really a fantastic platform for growth. But just to be clear, there's really only two things that matter when you make an investment: people and people. The people of Peter Pan and the partnership people of our team that made the acquisition, and we have first class and world class in both. So we're pretty excited about that. So, but you'll see some opportunities for enhancement coming down the pipeline.
Okay, great. So speaking of enhancement, can you talk a little bit about what you have in store for the future of Peter Pan Seafoods?
Sure. Well, I just told you what I think are, the key ingredients for investment. There are a couple of key ingredients for a seafood company. I've heard it said this way: there is a recipe for success in a seafood company. So here it is. First is people, I already mentioned. Second is throughput in a plant. So the more pounds you put through a plant, obviously the more efficient you are. The more efficient you are, the greater the margin when you do a transaction and you sell your fish, and the more you can pay your workers and fishermen. So that's obviously a really important component of the plan. What's most unusual about our transaction and what's most different relative to the legacy Peter Pan business is we merged it with Northwest Fish, which is the country's largest fish seller, fish broker, if you want to call it. Roger May and his team merging into the new Peter Pan Seafood Company. So you'll see us direct traffic to higher value added and to newer channels that are direct retail, direct consumer, that really hasn't been hampered by some of the negative effects of COVID. Clearly, COVID's been difficult for everyone, especially in Alaska and especially in the seafood industry. But there are areas where people are still demanding wild, sustainably harvested seafood, and that's us. And so, one of the big changes, again, is putting together this selling organization on top of a processing organization and created a fully vertically integrated global seafood powerhouse. But I think the thing that people are most interested in, frankly, is we're bringing it home to Alaska and America. And I think, that's resonating with people in this environment.
Yeah, absolutely. It's definitely, it's really nice to see, I can say, from the domestic side. So speaking of, throughput and new market outlets, I know that, it's been reported that Ichiro was losing money because of the ups and downs in Alaska's salmon resources. But also you are gaining one of the highest capacity canneries, like old fashioned, old school canneries, which has been seen as going on the way out, but the canned salmon demand has been higher in COVID. So, how are you hoping to do better in this changing time? I mean, do you feel like this transition is happening at a good time to help you take advantage of some of these market fluctuations, or are you sort of staying the course with some of the ideas that you had before we, had some of the results out from the pandemic? Because obviously there's, things are going to be changing this year again. It's not going to stay the same.
Well, you hit on a really important point. I don't know if I could have said it any better, frankly, and that is that, COVID has changed the demand picture for wild Alaskan seafood, and the way in which it is transported. And you mentioned King Cove, which of course is the largest cannery in the state. So we're excited about that because it allows us to swing that demand to where it's highest. And obviously right now, again, it's the retail and direct consumer channel. It's also a great overflow valve for us because, as you get a high supply of fish coming into a fishery all at once, which of course is what happened in the wild fishery in Bristol Bay last year, you have to be able to overflow your supply to different processors so you can manage that supply. So we think that's a really important valve. Overflow valve is maybe a way to look at it. But our plan all along has been to take a world-class processor, a world-class selling organization, put them together in a vertically integrated company, direct our supply to areas that care a lot about what we care about, which is Alaska. It's wild, it's sustainable, it's environmentally well organized, meaning we're taking care of the oceans, we're taking care of our stakeholders, around us, not just our employees, but the communities in which we work. And that really hasn't changed. I would say, if anything, COVID has emphasized the power of the business model that we were thinking about when we made the offer in the first place.
Yeah, that's great. A winner in COVID. So can you talk to me a little bit about, speaking of sustainability and the Alaska model, are you getting involved at all on the management side? Have you looked into bycatch issues? How are you getting advice on that?
Well, I mentioned people in regards to, the best type of investment. And then the second category, the people, meaning the partners, RRG is one of the world's most well-known and renowned investors in all things sustainable. If it's on your dinner table and it's sustainable, they're involved. So that's everything from agriculture, water, and seafood. So their expertise is sustainability and proper environmental sourcing and traceability. So that was one of the reasons why we brought them into the deal, is because we think that's the future. Not only do we have soon to be 10 billion people to feed on the planet, but people care more and more about where their food comes from, how it's sourced, who did it, from the fishermen in the boats to the person who processes the fillet to, how you get it at Whole Foods. That whole sort of supply chain is becoming a critical part of the decision process for consumers. And again, that's why we brought RRG in, and that's why we're really proud to have this team together. Obviously, it wouldn't work if we weren't able to sell it, and that's Northwest Fish, right? So it's a pretty powerful team thing.
Great. Are you looking at expanding your domestic market?
Sure, absolutely.
Great.
Yeah, I mean, look, there isn't enough Alaskan seafood at retailers around the country to satisfy the demand for wild Alaskan cod seafood. Just isn't. And so, we think we can solve some of that problem. But again, it gets back to we got to put more supply through the plant. So we got more to then sell to the world. So if you are a retailer out there and you are listening to this and you don't do business with us, we're waiting for your call.
All right, a call to action.
There you go.
I like that. So are you looking at more seafood investments outside of Peter Pan in other parts of Alaska seafood?
Well, to us, this is a platform. This is a platform of growth. So are there other things we can do within Peter Pan? You bet. Sure. But
Yeah.
step one is make sure that we're listening carefully to the stakeholders in which we already, have a relationship with. That's the communities, that's the employees, that's the fishermen, the fleet. There's an adage in the seafood business that fleet is family, and suffice it to say that we believe that's a real opportunity for improvement.
So that's perfect timing, because that brings me to my last couple of questions, which is about communication with the fleet. Are you talking to fleet members now, and what kind of feedback are you getting?
Well, fishermen, yes, is the first answer to your question. Yes, of course we are. We have a pretty significant outreach. In fact, the team leader for McKinley Research Group's seafood business is in fact coming from a fishing family's background. So she's leading that outreach. And yes, I think the great thing about fishermen is they aren't shy. So you can call up and you can say, hey, you already fish for us. What can we do better? You don't fish for us. Well, why? What can we do differently? You used to fish for us. What did we do wrong? And you'd be surprised how candid those conversations are. So needless to say, you take all that information, you put together an action plan, and again, you will see, and I think you've already seen some changes in that category. So
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't be surprised personally, but some people might.
What's really awesome about Peter Pan? I just have to tell you this anecdote because it's really powerful. People who used to work for Peter Pan but don't anymore. When we interviewed them before we made this investment, one of the things that they said, man, that's really tough that I'm not there anymore because boy, I bleed Peter Pan blue. When people say that, that means that they have a real powerful affinity. You can't make that up. That's real. And that is one of the special sauce ingredients that we found really attractive to this company, really attractive to the assets and to the people in the stakeholder environment around it. And we think that we'll have an opportunity to capitalize on that and bring some family back home.
Yeah, that's great. Are you planning to keep the name?
We are.
Okay. So if you could, I just want to close out with, if you could send one message to the fleet and other people maybe considering working with Peter Pan, what would that be?
Oh, only one. I mean, look, give us a chance. Now we're home. We brought it home. So now give us a chance. I think, and look, bring your critique. We're listening.
That's great, Rob. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for your time today, Jess. Nice to see you.
You too. Take care.